Have you ever felt trapped and it seems like you're just going in circles when it comes to dealing with temptations? Be it alcohol, cigarettes, lust, or even when it comes to food that we call gluttony. You are not alone, my friend. Even I still struggle from time to time when it comes to temptations. But the thing is, you do not need to resist temptation. Yes, you have heard me right. You do not need to resist temptation. Don't get me wrong, we need to do something about it, but we do not need to resist it. And I want to explain to you what I mean. But before that, we need to understand first what is temptation. If you find temptation in the Webster Dictionary, it just says that it is an occurrence of enticement. So if we want to dig deeper, we need to find what enticement means. And enticement means to attract artfully by arousing hope or desire. Yes, temptation plays around with our desires and our hope. That is the main target of temptation. And actually, it is unique for each and every individual. If, for example, you are tempted by alcohol, you cannot use that same temptation to me because I don't drink alcohol and I'm not even tempted to think of drinking alcohol. So that same temptation that you may have with alcohol will not work with me, and vice versa. Whatever it is that I can be tempted, you might not be tempted by it. That is how skillful and how masterful the devil is in doing temptation. And that is the main reason why you cannot resist temptation. Because it is designed by your hopes and by your desires. The devil knows you inside and out. He knows your hopes. He knows your desires. And that is why he can make a temptation that you cannot resist. Yes, sometimes we can be successful in resisting temptations. And maybe that can be a 4 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. But I am telling you, and you can ascertain that for yourself. Look into your past. Look into the times that you are tempted. How many times did you win? How many times did you fail and succumb to temptation? Remember that the devil is the king of lies. He can make any argument looks interesting and looks compelling to you. Even in the Bible, we'll see a lot of people who were not able to resist temptation. Like David, for example. When he saw Bathsheba showering, what did he do? Did he try to resist? Was he successful to temptation? He was not. How about King Saul? Was he successful in the temptation in his jealousy of David? He was not. And even as we look to all the great names in the Bible, in one point in their time, when they are tempted, they also failed to resist temptation. With one exception, there is only one man who was able to resist temptation, and that was Jesus. We can find in the New Testament, be it in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, an entry when Jesus was tempted by the devil. And this happened after he went into a 40 days of fasting and praying. 40 days without food and water and just being directly close to God. And that is when the devil tried to tempt him. And he did not only tried once, not twice, but 3 times. And all this time, he did not succeed. And Jesus was successful in resisting the devil. And he is the only one that can do that. We cannot do that. So how then can we win against temptation? If we don't need to resist it, then what should we do? Listen closely, my friend. You cannot resist temptation. But the one thing that is most effective is to run from temptation. I will repeat it. You don't need to resist temptation. You should run away from temptation. And no, it is not cowardly to run from temptation. It is the only way to defeat temptation and to defeat Satan in tempting you. Remember, Satan knows your desires and your hopes. And each temptation is designed to break through those hopes and through those desires. And that's why we cannot win when we try to resist temptation. But if we run away from them, then that is another story. He will never win if the fight had never even started. Because you ran away. And how do I know that it is an effective tactic? We can also see it in the Bible. And we can see it in action in Genesis chapter 39. You can read the whole chapter on your own later. But to summarize, this is a story when Joseph is already in Egypt and he was serving under Potiphar, who is a high-ranking official in Pharaoh's army. By this time, he has entrusted Joseph to take care of everything that he owns. And verse 6 tells us that Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." So Joseph is being enticed and being tempted, and Potiphar's wife is his master's wife. So you can see what kind of trouble he can be in if he did this. So what did Joseph do? At the first try, Joseph was able to tell off his master's wife. But it did not end there. His master's wife, Potiphar's wife, asked him again to come to bed with him when everyone in the house has gone outside and no one is around. So what did Joseph do? We can see this in verse 11 and verse 12. It says here, "One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She," meaning Potiphar's wife, "caught him by his cloak and said, 'Come to bed with me.' But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house." Yes, Joseph ran. He ran away from temptation. And that is what you and I should do whenever we are tempted, whenever we are facing temptation. Joseph knows that he cannot win over temptation. He cannot resist the temptation if he stayed there. So what did he do? He ran away. That didn't make him any less of a man, and that would not make you any less of a man, or in any other case, less of a woman. We need to know how to fight our battles. And sometimes running is the only option that we have, especially with temptation. So the next time you are facing with a difficult situation and you are tempted by the enemy, don't resist. Run away. Run as fast as you can away from that scenario, away from that situation. But it doesn't end there. We need to know where to run. You can't just run away. What do you want to do? Run away from the temptation of alcohol, but run into the temptation of cigarettes? Run away from the temptation of cigarettes, but run into the temptation of lust? Or whichever way that you can be tempted to? You need to know where to run to. Run to Jesus. Run to God. Run to His arms. He is our safe shelter, and He will always be there for us. Remember that the only one who won over temptation, who resisted temptation successfully, was Jesus. So we need to run to Him. We need to run to the victor. And as you make it a habit to run away from temptation, means that the enemy is failing over and over. And that will be the start of your victory over temptation, over that specific temptation. Thank you, friends, for joining us today, and I hope that you learned a little something about this video. And if you want to see more of these kinds of videos, you can check the videos that we have up here, or maybe even subscribe to this channel so that next time when we have a new video coming up, you will be informed and you will be notified. Let me have this privilege of journeying with you as we all run this race of life together and draw closer to our Father in heaven. God bless you, everyone.